Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cup of Tea. Today, I'm joined by Jack Stafford. I said that right? Jack Stafford. Perfect. I don't know. I'm always getting, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting people's names wrong, but then I'm actually not. It's just like a weird thing of mine. I was just like, did I say it wrong? I'm always checking. um, and today we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety. We are going to jump straight into it. We're going to talk about remedies. We're going to talk about sort of self-help treatments that you can do to sort of ease your anxiety. And just before we get into that, though, I just want to pass it over to Jack to sort of introduce himself to you guys so you can hear a little bit about his background and what he does.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for those watching. Yeah, my name's Jack Stafford. I'm a recently qualified personal trainer in London, and personal training comes from quite a deep place from mental health issues. Fitness came into my life when I needed it most, in my darkest days, when I was extremely depressed, and fitness gave me the platform to take the right steps in order to help myself in terms of recovering from mental health issues. And looking back on my journey, there are a lot of ways and a lot of pinnacle moments that have got me to where I am today. But I can safely say, with hand on my heart, that it was a journey. And I'm in a place now where I don't have mental health issues, but I'm a strong advocate, for basically being that guiding light for people to make them realize that there is always hope, because I always severely lacked that hope when I was going through it, and I lacked someone out there to really resonate with. And there is still a long way to go with opening up about mental health, but baby steps at a time. And, one more person being open is one more step in the right direction. So that's kind of my message. So fitness for me with my job comes from a very deep personal place. So yeah, that would be a little bit about me.
Oh, fantastic. I'm just curious, it might seem like a little bit of an obvious question, but to what degree did going through that spell of depression and experiencing that firsthand, to what degree did that help your understanding of mental health and sort of treating it in others, basically?
It allowed me to really understand the obscure dark topics of mental health. Like, all the campaigns that are out there right now about it's okay to not be okay. Although I think they're really nice sentiments, they don't actually dive into the headspace of the individual. So for me, it's allowed me to really connect with people about, because everyone goes through tough times. That's life, that everyone has their own struggles. But in terms of the mental health side, it allows me to really understand the battles people go on a daily basis, because I've faced all of those battles on my sort of level. So I can really connect with people, when they are struggling. And for me, that's like my message, to try and help people, to get them to realize, although it might be a little struggle every day of your life, we're creating that motion, pushing forward. Every little day is a fight. Every day is about you learning about yourself and taking positives from it. And actually, this is your character building. And that's what's made me realize, looking over my time, Riel, about that has defined who I am today. I take the positives from it. I take the huge positives from it and think I wouldn't have the character and the resolve I have today without those years of darkness. But obviously, when you're in it yourself, you don't see it like that, because hindsight is, it's all retrospect. It's a wonderful thing when you come out of it. But when you're in it, it is tough. But that is kind of my message to people. It's never a matter of if. For me, it's always a matter of when. I do believe people can always turn their situation around. So it does really help me to kind of dive really deep into kind of the daily processes of what people are going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and one of the, that's a lovely message, finding that essence of hope, because I think, even speaking from firsthand experience, that's been something I struggle with, is this going to change? Will I get out of this? How long must it be like this for? And I think a lot of people relate to that. And one of the reasons I really wanted to, got the ice cream van going in the background. That's going to be the theme tune for this.
99p flakes.
Oh, chalk ice.
Oh, they're banging.
And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because, opening up a little bit more about my mental health on social media and whatnot has really, for the first time, people have messaged me and they're talking about their own mental health. And, for some of them, that's the first time they've opened up about the issues that they're going through, and for them, it's like, just the act of just saying this is what I'm going through is a huge help for them, you know. So what I've learned from that is sometimes it's this idea of sometimes just going first, you know. And I think that's a message that I would like to put out there to everyone that's listening, you know. So if you do feel like you're in a place where you can talk a little bit about what you're going through and the mental challenges that you face, that could potentially really help someone that you're close to, because it opens up this sort of like this door or window of like, oh, well, they've gone first. Now that makes me feel more comfortable to do that myself. I can talk a little bit about myself because they've sort of set the floor, they've set the standard. And that could really help all our brothers and sisters across the world, because sometimes it's just that opening up that they need, that someone to talk to. But first, you know, but of course you have to be in a sort of, you know, a place where you're happy to actually talk about it yourself. But if you are, that's just one way you can actually help someone else, and bring everyone a little bit closer together and just be a bit more understanding of what you know, people are going through, you know, family.
Couldn't agree more, Ronel. Couldn't agree more.
So Jack, let's jump into this then. Before we get into remedies, how you know, there's this anxiety is a weird word because it covers so many spectrums, you know.
Oh, yes.
And, you know what I mean? And what you might think is anxiety, I might say, well, no, that falls under something else, or, you know. So firstly, how are you defining anxiety, just before we get into the remedies?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And I have been thinking about that all day. And I'm just going to talk about kind of how I define it, about my experience, because as you said, you can define it in so many different ways. But for me, you know, everyone gets anxious about kind of things that do happen in life, and that's normal. But for me, in my experience, my definition would be overthinking about what does not exist, creating scenarios in your head that do not exist, creating problems in your head that don't exist. And the more you ruminate and the worse your headspace you're in, the more you do ruminate in your own head, and the more of this vicious cycle you create. And it's really hard to get out of if you don't know how to get out of it. And then you create these scenarios, and that just damages your quality of life on such a severe level on a day-to-day basis. It stops you from going seeing people. It stops you from going doing things that you usually find so easy to do. So for me, it's just overthinking about so many things that do not exist.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. It's this mental, it's like recycling your thoughts over and over and over. And one of the things, you know, because I've been through something like that, and one of the things that I noticed was that I stopped experiencing the pleasure in the little things in life, you know? Like I used to really enjoy just watching a movie, or just going out for a walk, or just having a cup of tea, and all of that just started to seem strenuous to me. Like, oh, I can't, you know, you just lose the energy.
Emotionally flat.
Zapped out of your energy. I completely agree with your definition there, because obviously, especially psychologically, you know, there's physical symptoms, there's psychological symptoms, but regarding those psychological symptoms, I'm right there with you on that. So Jack, let's count down a couple of these then, because I want to make this video nice and accessible and easy for people to understand. So what would be, for example, your first thing that you would say to someone that's suffering with anxiety, with some of the symptoms that you just mentioned? What would be a remedy for them, you would say?
So, I mean, this is very at me being a personal trainer, fitness coach, but exercise and training. The reason I say that is because a lot of anxiety comes from staying in the same environment, not moving. And the fact that we don't move, we feel stuck. And for me, the physical benefits are obviously there, but the mental benefits and the emotional benefits are huge with exercise and training. And for me, what it is if there's one thing in my life that I can always have control over, it's my health and fitness. It's me committing to a routine of going to the gym. It's me pushing myself. And even though that's when I was going through depression, that was the one time in my day that I was in my zone, where I was focusing on how much weight I was lifting. I was focusing on trying to beat my previous workouts. And although I might not have necessarily beaten them, my previous workouts, that was the one thing I felt like I had control of. And with anxiety, there's such a thing, you don't feel like you have control over anything in your life. And you get so sucked into like, oh, everything's too much on this world. Like, how do I fit in? But if you really concentrate it into your own little world, You know, exercise and training is the one thing you can have really strong control over. So for me, I would always ask people, you know, and if they turn around and they say they don't have a routine or they don't train or exercise, then I would automatically first thing say, just, you have to. And once you do start to get into that, you know, there are ways to implement kind of how to go about that. But once you start to move more, once you start to feel your body move more, you will feel so much better for it. And sometimes people might say, oh, it's easy for you to say, but it's just, you know, just making that commitment. And I always say this to people who are struggling with mental health, you know, there's such an importance on motion creating momentum. You know, that single act of motion, you know, maybe just going once, you know, if you go again, and that creates momentum, before you know it, you're in a routine where you need exercise in your life, because you realize that the mental and emotional benefit it has on your life. And that can really help people's anxiety. So that would definitely be my first one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I can absolutely attest to. I started working out again. I got sick, literally sick from anxiety last year, so I had to stop working out. And then I picked it up again. I picked it up again this February, and then non-stop all throughout lockdown. Even though I'm just got my weights at home, I tried to do an hour 4 days a week. And just crash out, and just literally like you said. And by the way, guys, in no way are we saying this cures anxiety or anything like that. They're self-help, and it's an essence of easing your anxiety or doing certain things that can make your quality of life just that little bit better. So that's sort of what we're tackling today. But yeah, I completely agree, Jack. You know, it's you know, when you're doing that 1 hour of working out, your mind it seems to be way more engaged, instead of just, you know, drifting off and worrying about everything else. You seem to be really engaged in that, because it is so linked to what you're doing physically, you know, and there's this challenge in your mind of like, I want to do better this time. I want to, you know, it gives you a sense of purpose.
You got your music on, it's your time.
It's your time. Yeah.
So yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. And it's sometimes you can feel like in a rut, you know, when your anxiety is so high, you feel like you can't go to the gym. But as you said, even at home, you know, there's always where there's a will, there's always a way. And even just working out for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, doing like little body weight circuits in maybe like it sort of style, would be even kind of such a productive way, use of time in order to relieve your anxiety. So yeah, that as well. So that's definitely be up there.
What would be your next one?
Okay, so for me, what I had gotten into a couple of years ago, and I kind of trialed it, and then I actually picked it up again more recently, and I've had a huge benefit from it, is meditation. And mindfulness meditation, because it's all about, you know, the only thing that mindfulness meditation gets you to focus on is just your breathing. And there's this kind of one routine that I find, there's so many out there, it's what works for everyone, but it's all about, you know, breathing in for 4 seconds, holding and focusing on that like endpoint, and then breathing out for 6 seconds, and focusing on the endpoints between breathing in and out. And once you really focus on it, you don't think about anything else. You're only thinking about your breathing. You're still positioned, whether you're lying on your bed, whether you're in that meditation pose. And that can take us out of our like heightened anxiety state, because as you know, when you ruminate, you're in the same environment. And how do you switch that up? Well, listening to someone else's voice, getting your headspace away from your toxic thoughts and onto someone else telling you what to do in a very calm manner. And the whole impact of kind of listening to someone else in that calm state can reduce your kind of anxious state to a lesser level. And you might not always kind of be fully engaged in meditation, but even just the single act of, you know, doing it, it not only helps, but as I said, motion creates momentum, and the more kind of you do it, the better you're going to get at meditation. Like with everything real in life, you know, you're not just going to be made on the first shot. It does take practice. It does kind of take time. But for me, it's always, if your anxiety is really affecting your quality of life on a day-to-day basis, for me, like I would have done anything to try and get rid of that. So for me, if your anxiety is really affecting your happiness, then these things are things that you will be happy to try out. For me, having excuses saying, oh, well, this is this, it's almost like, you know, there is that slight bit of you that doesn't really want to change the situation enough. if you create enough pain, you know, with how you are feeling, like when my anxiety was high, I always create enough pain of this is affecting my quality of life. I would automatically make that change because I would seek pleasure to get rid of that pain.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about meditation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that meditation is actually something that I certainly want to move into as well. It's not something I've ever been able to like practice consistently. I've always, it sounds silly, but I've said, oh, I don't have time, and I usually do it at night, and then I'm like tired, and then I just fall asleep and stuff, you know. So definitely something I want to do. But I was actually going to therapy, and they recommended mindfulness quite a lot, you know, to I think some people call it havening as well, going to this place of like, you know, wonderment, and somewhere you where you feel these positive emotions. So absolutely. So yeah, it is certainly a
But
tough one.
obviously, what works for me is not going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Obviously, you might find things, and if it doesn't work for you, to not beat yourself up. You know, the way of looking at it, and the way I always would see it was, okay, that doesn't work for me, but I'm still one step closer in actually knowing what does work for me. Because just because one thing works for you, you know, you realize, okay, that doesn't necessarily work for me right now, and then you can go on to the next thing that you might find that could be your thing. So it's not necessarily a case of, and you know, when you are suffering mental health issues, you can automatically write everything off, being like, nothing's going to work. But if you kind of have the attitude of, okay, that hasn't worked, but then, you know, I know that doesn't work, I can go and try something else. And then you might be one step closer to finding something that really works for you. And then you'll get so much kind of emotional, mental benefit from eventually finding something that does work for you. So there's always a step closer in the right direction. It's always that positive outlook when, you know, when even if something doesn't work.
Absolutely. I was actually watching an interview with, do you know the boxer Tyson Fury? Yes.
Amazing story.
Yeah, he's got an amazing story. Yeah, absolutely. And I was watching the interview, and he was talking about how when he was at his worst, he couldn't figure out a way to get out of all the mental health problems he was dealing with. So he turned to alcohol, he turned to drugs and stuff like that. And that was his escape for that period. He just, because he said it took away his anxiety, but then when it came back, it was just full blown. It was like, oh, it was even worse when he would come off that high of being drunk or being high or from drugs and stuff. To you know, if someone's watching this and they're, you know, they seek or they're using any alcohol or anything like that to help soothe their anxiety or just take them out of that space mentally, what would your advice to them be?
Well, I've been all down that route, Rial, so I know exactly what it is. When, you know, you go down the drugs and alcohol route, it's just kind of wanting to not confront your kind of real problem, because no one wants to admit when they haven't opened up. You know, when you're in denial, you do turn to drugs and alcohol. And so when you are in denial, you don't want to confront your problems head on, because you are aware of like not only the scary journey ahead, but no one wants to feel like they have mental health issues so bad that that's what they're turning to.
And alcohol is so accessible and easy to just, you know,
so easy. So accessible. And it's like you get into the cycle of it and you don't realize kind of the long-term damage it can have on you. Like I you know, I still have kind of a funny relationship with alcohol that I have to be careful with, because I know there's that switch inside of me, and that does still need to be sorted out with therapy down the line. But it is about kind of actually understanding and catching yourself turning to these things and realizing, okay, this is my coping mechanism. This is not a healthy coping mechanism of how I am feeling, because especially with the drugs, you know, all the chemical imbalances going on inside your brain with your serotonin levels, which affects your mood. You know, eventually over time, those chemical imbalances causes an extremely heightened stress response within your brain, which triggers like the onset of depression. And if you aren't already depressed, and the reason I know this is because I've done all my research with it, because it happened to me. And the more you kind of cope with drugs and alcohol, that it heightens that stress response in your brain, and your brain just starts to shut down. And you just go into more and more of kind of the darkness and depression. So it would just be to catching yourself, Rial. And that's the thing with a lot of people, they're not aware of them, you know, actually being in denial, because I just thought that was the new me.
Yeah.
So when you actually start to think that is kind of the new you, that's when it can be a sign of, you know, something's going on here.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. When you start to think this is now me, this is what I do, this is who I am, and you just fall into that lifestyle. Absolutely.
Scary.
Jack, any more remedies for anxiety?
Yes. So if there are people out there like listening to this or
Yeah.
watching this, if you're still at a stage where you're not fully comfortable, and that is so like understandable, you know, everyone comes into their own about when they feel comfortable about opening up. It's not just a case of, oh, I'm listening to Jack right now, I'm going to go and like speak up to my parents and my friends. It doesn't work. I'm so aware it doesn't work like that. But what I would always used to do is, yet again, creating that motion. I would always write things down. So I make notes on my laptop about how I was feeling in my worst moments. And you know what? I'm so glad I did, because looking back on them now, you know, for me, it's a great like factor to show how far I've come. But just writing my thoughts down, even though I didn't know what the hell was going on inside my head at the time, it just allowed me to just have some sort of cathartic mental release.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't ready to speak up to anyone else.
Yeah.
Just writing my thoughts down, I had it out, and it felt like a bit of pressure being off. I wasn't bottling it all up. So just writing it down, journaling, no matter what day it is, no matter what time, just doing that. And it is a huge, huge benefit to how I was feeling at the time. It got it out there. And for me, that was the motion that started to talk up my headspace more. And that's what kind of eventually gave me the courage to open up to my parents. So that's what I would say, journaling.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I was going to therapy, I did 6 weeks under the NHS. And that was one of the ones that that she told me to do as well. And there was this concept of writing your thoughts down and then worrying about everything on that paper for like 15 or 20 minutes.
Yes.
And then throwing that paper in the bin as a symbol of like, okay, that's out of my mind now, you know.
Good. I like that. That's good. No, that's strong.
Yes.
Very
Any others that you have, Jack?
Yes. So diet is a huge one.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually realize like the impact diet had when I was going through depression, because I was into my fitness, but I wasn't into it on a personal training fitness coach level. But your diet is so important in your headspace, because basically without getting too technical,
you
know, when you eat all this junk food, it does it promote like chronic inflammation within your brain, especially because we don't eat enough of the healthy type of food, which helps to combat that. Like, for example, I mean, the healthy types of food that help combat that are termed, you know, omega-3 fatty acids. So like your oily fishes, your salmons, mackerels, tuna, all of those, you know, help to combat that. But we live in such a society of snacking on chocolate, cake, biscuits, all of that. And all of these contain like all these like oils that are processed. And over time, this imbalance kind of promotes chronic inflammation within our brain. And as I said earlier, that creates a very heightened stress response. And how our brain basically copes is that all the transmitters that helped make us feel good, they get impaired in their function. They don't function as they should, as how we're built. So because of that, we can go into depression, we can go into extremely heightened states of anxiety, living in constant fear, because our brain can't cope with actually what's going on in terms of inside of our head. So diet is actually super important in that sense. And people say, oh yeah, salmon's like brain food. And it's a known thing, but they don't know why, but that's why. So just having a clean diet, and also on a deeper level in terms of psychology, if you know you are eating kind of nutritious food, yes, we all like to enjoy ourselves. I'm all for that, having a nice bit of cake or whatever here and there. But it's that, yet again, that thing about having a bit of control. You know, if you feel like you're in control of like your food intake, you do feel subconsciously better within yourself. Whereas when you're using food as like a coping mechanism, that's still out of control. Like, you're not in control of your food intake. And that's a subconscious level of actually you kind of feeling even worse about yourself. People won't openly admit that, but kind of understanding people's psychologies and their relationship with food. That is kind of the deep level of it. So it's all about, like I said, with your exercise, about being in control more of that diet.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's something that I really need to educate myself on. I haven't educated myself on that enough. I've heard that before, but now that you've said that to me, I definitely want to research more into that and perhaps
It's definitely worth it. 100%
absolutely,
worth
yeah,
it.
because I think that you know, I've heard it before, but I haven't heard it enough, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean, you know, and I really want to look into that more. But I'm so glad you've come on here and said that, because it's opened up my eyes and everyone that's watching's eyes as well. I'm curious though, as a personal trainer, do you still have like a weekly cheat day where you just go crazy and
Mate, 100%. Get crazy. I love it.
dominoes?
No, mate, 100%. I'm not one of these like fitness professionals, but like, you must eat chicken, rice, broccoli. Like,
Yeah,
that is just not sustainable.
yeah,
And people who try and get their clients to do that, they're going to have a terrible negative relationship with food, because they're depriving themselves of the things they love.
mm,
And, you know, health and fitness is all about, you know, bettering yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, but also with your food. It's about finding a balance that works for you. So, for example, on a weekend, you know, I enjoy a couple of pints of cider. You know, I
yeah,
have like a nice dessert in the evening.
yeah,
You know, even in the week, I have maybe 1 or 2 bits of dark chocolate. So I still enjoy my stuff. I've just found that balance. I just cannot stand these people who
yeah,
just tell everyone, be like, you have to eat chicken, rice, broccoli every meal, and it just drives me nuts, because that's just not, no one. They don't think of anyone else. They're only thinking of what works for them. They're not thinking about what works for other people. Life's too short to deprive yourself too much.
yeah.
But then again, it's about taking that responsibility upon yourself to, you know, not take that too far and be like, okay, if I do kind of want to better myself physically as well, I have to kind of eat well most of the time. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, Jack. Amazing. Amazing.
Everyone's going
Everyone's
to be
going to feel a
like,
lot
right,
better
the
about their
personal
cheat
trainer
days
said
now.
it, let's go and binge eat.
Yeah. Everyone's going to be like, oh, he said it, it's fine. We can. Everyone's just watching this eating cake now. They're like, ah, yeah. So, Jack, we're going to start to close soon. Unless you have any more that you want to talk about in terms of remedies, because I want to also get you to talk a little bit about what you offer, and if anyone wants to get in contact with you, how they can do that. But we can finish the remedies first. If you have any more, then we want to.
I mean, I guess remedies kind of the obvious one, you know, as you've mentioned a couple of times, and people know about that, it's just therapy.
Yeah.
Just you know, it's so courageous to actually go and see someone to do it. But
Yeah.
not even the first person that I went to see, you know, we didn't click, but I didn't get disheartened about that. I thought, okay,
Same, actually,
I
same.
know that wasn't right for me, but I know there are more people out there. And then the second woman, we did click. And over the space of about 10 to 12 sessions, we really started to make significant progress. And this was before I went traveling. And then it allowed, the thing I would say most about therapy, if anyone out there is contemplating it, you know, you can talk to your friends, you can talk to your family members about your headspace. And that's amazing, you're opening up. But the way a therapy works is they basically can tap into your mind in terms of, they get you to think about things that other people can't get you to think about, and that allows you to understand your headspace more, and that allows you to make more inroads about, you know, what the deeper problems are, what is going on. So that's what would be my main thing about therapy. So if anyone is out there kind of contemplating it, I cannot recommend it enough. I will happily go and do it now. I've already done it whenever I need it, whenever I have kind of some more disposable income, being comfortable enough to spend that on it. And it's not even expensive, which is amazing if you really prioritize your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if things started to kind of go down that road again, I would automatically go and get it. It was that good. So that, as you mentioned as well earlier, therapy would definitely be my last and most kind of significant one.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I too recommend it as well. You know, there's of course you can get private, and if you want to prioritize your mental health, it'll be worth every penny. You know, this step closer to living in peace. And also, the therapy I had was 6 weeks under the NHS, which was free. So you know, you can look into both those options. So Jack, obviously there's going to be a lot of people, well, I hope a lot of people, but I hope some people that will watch this and see what you've said, and they're really gonna connect with it and resonate with what you've said. And you know, you've got such great vibes, great energy, great positivity, very understanding. And obviously you offer a fitness service, a mental health service along with that, of course, with your knowledge. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, can you talk a little bit about your services you offer and how they would get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, well, the best way to get in contact with me, it's not like I can work with everyone. Life doesn't work like that. But you know, the best way to get in contact with me would be via email, which is my company name, befitandbeyond@gmail.com, or contact me via social media, bfit and beyond. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. But yeah, just being, you know, I consider myself more of a fitness coach, because for me, fitness is not only about kind of bettering yourself physically, but it gave me the belief systems to get to where I am today. So it's all about a deeper rooted kind of you pushing to be the best version of yourself. You actually installing that kind of self-confidence that you didn't think you had. And over time, that builds and that builds. And before you know it, you know, you actually start to have more confidence in the day-to-day. You know, you start to feel better within yourself. And you not only with that, you've got a better body with it. So that for me is a huge thing. And with the mental health side of it, it is all about kind of actually, as I said, building your belief system so you're not feeling so trapped in your life. You feel like you have that control. And then that starts to create incredible amounts of energy within inside you. So that's kind of like what I work with people as well. And I do that all, you know, as I said, without the chicken, broccoli and rice diet.
You really got a vendetta against that, don't you?
Dude, I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
All right, well, Jack, as you know how the world runs, it's try before you buy. So can we see a little...
Are we doing this?
A little flexor. Can we see?
Oh,
we did that. Yes. Okay, let's go.
I can't believe I just done that. I only felt peer pressured into doing it.
Sorry, but that was great.
I'm not usually like that at all. So
right, I won't make it the thumbnail, even though it's a good thumbnail. Jack, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And we are going to end on this note. One day, you open your eyes, okay, and you're on a desert island, okay, on a desert island, and you're walking along. You're on the desert island. You're walking along, okay. Yeah. And I'll tell you where you're walking. You're walking between that awkward wet patch of, like, you know, where the water's hitting the sand and your feet sink it, yeah? And then your feet are sinking and you're walking along thinking, how did I get here? And then you hit your foot on something and you go, ah, you know, and then you pick it up, okay? And it's a lamp, okay? Just like from Aladdin, it's a lamp, okay? Yes. And you think, what is this? And then you rub the lamp, of course, and poof, a genie appears out of the lamp. Okay. And the genie's name is Simon Watford, because that's just what we're calling him. That's just his name. That's the name he's come to. Love it. So the genie's name is Simon Watford, okay? And the genie appears, of course, to be in a bad mood. And he says to you, oh my gosh, it's been a long 29,000 years in that lamp. Oh my gosh. So he's very upset that he's been in that lamp, but at the same time, he's elated because you rubbed it and let him out, okay? So he says to you, I am going to do something. I'm going to do one good thing and one bad thing. The bad thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to steal your voice away from you, okay? So he's going to go, zoop, zoop, steal your voice box so you can never speak again, okay? But he's also going to do one more thing for you. The good thing, before he takes your voice away, he's going to allow you to speak a final couple of words or whatever you want to say. And everything, and what you say just there is going to be echoed across the entire world, the entire planet. Everyone's going to hear it. It's going to be in every country. It's going to be translated into every language. Everyone's going to hear exactly what you're about to say before he takes your voice away. So my question, Jack, is what do you say in that moment to the entire world?
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Woo! He came prepared, ladies and gentlemen. He came prepared.
And the reason I do say that is because that is what that comment after I watched the darkest hour of the film, that was at the end, and that resonated with me so much. Every single day that I felt like I didn't want to be on this planet, in my head, I was like, Jack, it is the courage to continue that counts. And that will stick with me for the rest of my life. So that is what I would say.
Thank you so much for that. That is beautiful. Oh man, I love that. I love that. This has been such a fun episode. And
mate, thank you so much for having me on. You know, it's been so great to be on and just chat to you anyway. Like, I've had such fun. Thank you so much.
It's so good, isn't it? It's so good. It's so much positivity, and that's what we really want to put out into the world. And Jack, you've really inspired me today, and you've also taught me something. So I want to say thank you to you, and thank you on behalf of anyone watching, because you've really helped, and what you stand for is just amazing. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Jack Stafford. Thank you so much for joining me. All right. Take care. Bye.